Shadows creep around us, silent whispers call. In the dark we wander lost within it all. My air is heavy, breaths that freeze the soul. Echoes in the distance, stories left untold. Whispers of the night, drawing near and tight. Secrets in the shadows, hidden from the light.
All right, welcome, true believers. Here we are with another episode of Monstrous. And tonight I get to have some of my favorite people. I get to have the crew from Bordertown Strange. So I'm going to start off with, I've got Pam, Jess, Mark, Mike, and we should have two others possibly popping in here in a little bit. And I'm going to start off with Pam. Oh, I skipped one. She's hiding back there. So, Pam, y'all go ahead and introduce yourselves. Tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Sure thing. I'm Pam Ernest, and I've been with Bordertown Paranormal since 2012. It's one of the founding members. Born and raised in Katy, Kansas, and have absolutely loved anything paranormal my whole life. I don't know. What else do I need to throw in on that? I'm part of the Bordertown Strange podcast. I'm also part of the Amok podcast. And I think that's where I met you, Robert, was through Amok.
Absolutely.
And what else do I have going on? I don't even know. I'll just pass it over to Jennifer and let her introduce herself.
That works.
Okay. My name is Jennifer Rawson. I've been with the team for about 5 years. I absolutely love learning all this stuff. I'm actually a librarian, so I love researching anything. I think that's about it. Next.
Jennifer's my boss.
Yeah, that's what they didn't tell you, that they're both librarians.
Nerds. No.
Oh,
I mean,
we own it. It's okay.
It's okay. Hey, when I was in high school, I was president of the library club, so I'm a big nerd too. So.
You are a nerd.
Awesome, dude. All right, Jess, tell us about yourself.
Okay. I'm Jess Holman. I'm also from Caney. I'm also one of the original members of Bordertown Paranormal since 2012. I'm an investigator, a researcher, historian. I also speak at paranormally type of events, and I'm also a podcaster. I'm on Bordertown Strange and on The Fringe with Mark. And I think that's it on my end.
All right. We'll get into your whole notebook fetish later on. We'll talk about that.
Fantastic.
All right, Mark, tell us about yourself, sir.
Well, my name is Mark Bannon. I live in Caney. I was born and raised in the Udall area up by Wichita. I was one of the founding members of Bordertown Paranormal. So we've been doing that since 2012. I'm kind of the techie guy, sort of, in the group, and I play the part of the skeptic. I'm a skeptical believer, if that makes any sense.
It does.
And my interests are far and wide. I'm also the co-host for the On the Fringe podcast and the What If Tomorrow podcast, and appear occasionally on Bordertown Strange, and we have a good time together.
Very cool. Very cool. Mike, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. So let's go ahead. Mike, introduce yourself. Let everybody know who you are, what you are.
Name's Mike Coy. I'm a retired guy and work a part-time job, and been with the Bordertown Paranormal group since it started. And try to do a little bit of everything. My favorite thing to do is get EVP recordings.
Okay.
And, do some video work, and wherever I can help out.
That sounds fantastic, Mike. Scott,
Hello.
why don't you tell us
How you
about
doing?
Mr. Scott?
Scott Rodemaker, member of Red Dirt Cryptid, also a member of the Bordertown with Jess, Pam, and Mark, and Mike, and Jennifer over there. Just recently joined all them. Looking forward to new, exciting stuff, I guess. With Red
Cool.
Dirt Cryptid, I'm just a field investigator, and I've been doing this for, I don't know, I guess with Red Dirt for about, 3 years now or something like that. It's always
Right.
fascinating me, just, anything unknown.
All right, so Bordertown Paranormal. Exactly what does Bordertown Paranormal do?
Oh gosh, who wants to run with that one?
We do everything. We started out with an interest in ghost hunting in 2012 at the height of the ghost hunting phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know each other then. My wife worked at the library with Pam, and you two ought to just get together and talk about this stuff. And we put a call out, and we got 15, 20 people to show up at our first meeting until we pared down to our core group. And then over the years, we've gotten to looking into other strange things and found out that a lot of this seems to be connected or have similar phenomenon associated with them. So we've just kept expanding out. So we look at UFOs, we look at cryptids, we do the ghost things, hidden history, out of place objects, you name it. We have probably discussed it, and just dove right in off the deep end. So.
Sounds like you guys are traveling about the same path I've been traveling for quite some time too.
Yeah.
We went like the first 6 years just being pretty much solely ghost hunters, and it was about that time we decided, there is a connection here with some of this other stuff, and we kind of really started branching out, and it's been so interesting since we did. We've got into all kinds of stuff.
Yep. So beyond doing your basic ghost hunter type stuff, we do home and business investigations for people almost completely anonymously. We're a completely anonymous group. If we investigate your home, the information will not pop up on social media that night. That's not how we roll. And we also decided fairly early on, we really wanted to get the public more involved with it. I think there's like this mystique that people think there is to like this ghost hunting, and we're all in black shirts and we have all of our fancy equipment, and there must be something just super fabulous to it. But we really wanted to do kind of like a public outreach. Also because we live in the middle of the Bible Belt. And some of it's kind of frowned upon, some of what we do. And we really wanted our area especially to kind of open up to us just a little bit. So we started some kind of like an outreach program, I guess you could say. So we started doing programs at the local library and giving little talks on different topics, especially our area is very steeped in old Indian myth and lore, and we have every kind of cryptid and ghost story and stuff going on in our area. So we started kind of making these little presentations to the public. Right now we do a presents once a month. We do once a month where we come and we pick a topic and we have a free evening where the public can come in and discuss it with us, and we give a presentation. We started a paranormal club where anybody can come and talk about anything paranormal once a month, and it's free to the public also. And then we started the Paracon, which will be in its 6th year. this year, I believe.
Yep.
Yes.
Which has grown, and we're going to talk about that a little bit too later. But yeah, we've really just started all this, and then between all of us, we have 4 podcasts under our belt that we're all constantly putting out content on. So we're really trying to do that kind of outreach thing.
Oh, we have Enzo has just showed up.
Yay.
Hello,
There you
everyone.
are.
There's Enzo.
We're playing roulette here.
Yeah.
That's it. Doing the shell game. Who's under which ski?
So Enzo, tell us a little bit about yourself, sir.
I am retired Air Force. Was in for 24 years. I worked aircraft maintenance. Don't ask me where the UFOs are. I don't know. During the latter part of my career, I was working in the wing safety office and dealt a lot with wildlife control and stuff like that. Plus, one of my hobbies is astronomy. So I have many years of observing things in our skies, be it planes, be it drones, be it birds, being weathers. I also live near Wichita, Kansas. So we're constantly watching the skies around here for tornadoes and such. But I have a lot of time on my hands sometimes, and I spend a lot of time looking at the sky, and so I'm pretty good at looking at people's pictures and things like that, and showing them, okay, this is probably a bird, or this is probably an aircraft, or simply I don't know what that is. So I have a lot of experience staring at the sky, and over that time, over my life, I've seen 2 UFOs. So.
Very cool. Very cool. So yeah, we were talking about what Bordertown Paranormal does and all of that. And we were just getting into the Paracon that's getting ready to come up. So tell somebody, anybody, Pam, probably, tell me and the listeners about Paracon. What is Paracon?
So the Paracon, this is something that we started, like Jess said, about 6 years ago now that we've been doing it. And what it is pretty much a vehicle for us to get everyone in the community together. That's really what we wanted to do, was to get the ghost hunters, get the UFO guys, get the cryptid guys from our area all together to network. Mm-hmm. And in doing that, we decided it would be fun to open it up to the public as well, so they could come in and hear us talk and could ask questions and kind of engage in the conversation themselves. And that's what we've been doing. And so we do make it free to the public to come in. And it's been really a lot of fun. We've had a great time with it. I know this year we're going to have about 40 speakers come in. Mm-hmm. And that includes, we've got 5 presenters? I think it's 5 presenters and then 3 panels. So the rest of those will be on all panelists. And then we also have vendors that are coming in. And we also have a psychic medium that'll be there. And we have a couple of readers that'll come in as well. So it's a lot of fun. The doors open at 9 a.m. and it goes until 7:30 p.m. And we have raffles and we have gift bags and we have all kinds of really cool things going on. So
cool.
It's a fun day. And
it is a fun day.
This year.
And one of the ground rules is everybody has to make themselves available at least for a little while so the public can come up and strike up a conversation and, put faces and names to some of these local groups and to answer their questions. We feel like
my favorite part about it is just having people milling around, and I wear a ridiculously loud shirt so I stand out so they know they can ask me questions, and I love it. It's just having conversation with regular folks that obviously have had some type of odd experience. That's why they're there usually, and getting into the deep end with them one-on-one. It's really great.
Yeah, and we've come across some of our best stories.
Yes.
At the Paracon, people have come in, hey, I don't know what this is, but let me tell you about it. And your eyes start getting big, like, oh my gosh.
I know I'm looking forward to it because I'm going to be there this year. This will be my first year being there. I'll be there with, books, everything, be representing the podcast. And my plan is next year I'll be a speaker. So,
Oh, good.
so we'll have fun. I plan on being there every year from now on. So
Awesome.
Great.
Oh,
That's
nice.
exciting.
We have made contact and connections with so many really interesting people there, and it's worth it just for that.
Mhm.
Probably the Paracon and everybody getting together is probably responsible for at least half a dozen podcasts getting started.
It is for sure for a muck because as soon as it was over, Adrian found out about it and Shauna was telling him about it. And he was like, I wish I would have known because this is what I'm interested in is pulling people together, in the area. And so that's where he came up with the idea for a muck. And we started it. We had our Paracon the last Saturday of September, which it is every single year, the last Saturday of September.
Mhm.
And by January, a muck was up and running.
Yep.
So,
Which is
yeah.
National Ghost Hunter Day, by the way.
Yes, the last Saturday of September is. We didn't know it. It was just a happy accident that we.
Well, that's
Yeah,
cool.
and you guys hear me now?
We can hear you now,
We
Mike.
can hear you, Mike.
I just want to say the first Paracon that I went to was right at 9 years ago up in Belvoir Winery. And Amy Bruni, Adam Berry, Kip Coffey, Dave Schrader was all there. It was a 3-day thing. And it was really cool. And that was the first one I ever went to. And I got telling these guys about it and went to a couple more after that. And just learned a lot about being around people like that that's been in it forever.
Yeah,
It's a
it is a
huge deal.
fantastic learning experience.
It is. It is great to be able to network with people and you get to meet these people that you really enjoy in person. And we hope people enjoy us in person. I guess, I don't know if they do or not, but they come back. So I guess that's a good sign.
Sounds like a good time for all. Scott, tell me a little bit about Red Dirt Cryptids.
Red Dirt, well, we just do some field investigations.
Into what? What do you field investigate?
Field investigations anything from Bigfoot, Dogman. I think Brian's actually done a couple of unknown flying creatures. A couple of ones that he's done here recently have been little people. That's a pretty interesting and unusual subject. I mean, I don't know much about them, but it's definitely an interesting subject. And the last one that he did was a lady down there in Oklahoma. We got quite a few views on the video, and it's a pretty interesting video. She's a pretty credible witness. I think she's also a member of the NOBRO, the Native Oklahoma Bigfoot Research Organization. So she's got a lot of credibility.
Cool.
Yeah, but we got thermal imaging, we got night vision, we got all kinds of different high tech equipment, to help us, in the field investigating different sightings. And the thing I like the most, is hearing the different stories and meeting the new people, and just, and we do things that are anonymous if they so choose. It's entirely up to them. We honor their, because some people just don't want to. I mean, so
Right.
we got to honor that, and it's been a learning experience, and it's been fun, and looking forward to a lot more. I can tell you that we went out last night. I didn't get home till almost 1:00. So
Yeah, I know from experience myself as being a field researcher and investigator and everything, it's a big change switching from just doing the investigations, the research behind the scenes to gearing it up to doing it, presenting it in a podcast form or presenting it in a book or on the group even. There's a big difference between that. So I totally get where you're coming from on that.
Right.
What seems to be the most active of the critters as of late? Would it be Bigfoot, Dogman? What are we looking at?
Well, I would probably say the most common one would probably just, your Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
But it just really, I mean, it seems like the Dogman thing is really just kind of taken off. I mean,
It has. It's
over the past,
exploded. You're right.
uh, and I'm not even really sure what to think about the whole Dogman thing. I mean, it's when you say Dogman, people think, well, what the heck is that? A Dogman? Is that like a? And my best way to describe it would be just like a werewolf type creature.
As far as what it looks like, yeah.
Right. And there's
Yeah,
different
like
variations. I think there's like four or five different variations.
Right. Yeah.
And that's just anybody's guess really, because we really just don't know for sure.
We've wondered how many you usually, when you talk about something and you refer to something, you base it on your point of reference.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people, their point of reference is Bigfoot. So we have wondered how many Bigfoot reportings, if there's a large sighting of a Dogman all of a sudden, now that people have that point of reference for Dogman, we wonder how many of the old Bigfoot reportings could have possibly been Dogman. And it's just the point of reference that they had.
Right.
I know that there is a case that happened when I was a teenager, when a kid that I knew and that I was actually at when this happened, he swore we had a creature called Catman in our area, and it was basically Bigfoot, and it was just the name that it was given in our area. But he was screaming one night that Catman had got him, and when we got to him, we were all at a party, and we were going to this house up on a hill, and you had to go through a barbed wire fence to get to it.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he needed to go use the restroom, so he kind of wandered off, and we hear him start screaming, and he's just screaming, Catman got me, Catman got me. And we were like, okay, you got hung up in the fence, is what has happened. But when we got to him, he was trying to hold his arm shut, and he was spurting blood. And we were like, dude, so we get him back to town. He had to have a bunch of stitches in his arm, and he had 3 huge gashes, and he swore that a Bigfoot Catman thing had grabbed him. And it just dawned on us. Actually, Jess brought it up, I don't know, about 6 months ago when we were talking about Dogman. She was like, that story that you have? Bigfoot obviously doesn't have claws. It's never been reported that one does, but the Dogmen do.
Right.
And she was like, I wonder if that's what that was. Could have possibly been a Dogman as opposed to a Bigfoot. This would have been 86, 87.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's a long time ago, but that was our point of reference at the time, was Bigfoot.
And then recently we've had several Dogman sightings in the area.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of put it in our mind. Well, if he's around here now, he might have been here then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, from a cryptozoological point of view, these things were either here all along or they're not here at all.
Right.
So, I mean, unless you want to get off on that whole tangent of they're developed by the military, their weapons, blah, 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 and all of that crap. My background's cryptozoology, so it's flesh and blood.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I started off at years and years ago, was the flesh and blood camp. And we were very strict. There was no paranormal anything that was allowed in that at all. I mean, we made, the BFRO look silly about stuff like that. But as we've gone along, and like you talked about earlier, there's connections. We find connections from, you might have a haunting that's going on where you're having something thumping against something, or you're getting whistles, or you're getting other things, and that's popping up with Bigfoot, or it's popping up with Dogman, or different things like that. So yeah, either this thing has been around all along and we just misidentified it, or just blown it off, or it doesn't exist, one or the other. It's unless we get into the other.
Mm-hmm.
So we were kind of talking about that a little bit on the group today, and I kind of bring that up every so often. So when we talk about the other, we're talking about the fae, trolls, goblins, whatever you want to call these things. So the underlying theme behind the hypothesis or theory is that these things are there. They've always been there. They probably were there before us. And something they can do to keep us out of their territory is to take on the persona of something that scares the living shit out of us. So,
Right, exactly.
Exactly. So where we see that there might be hauntings, maybe they're not hauntings. Maybe it's something simply trying to drive us away so that we're not there. Or maybe there's, we've had times where people are walking through the woods at night and something's walking right beside them and they can't tell what's there. They're looking, they're shining a light, they don't see anything. Or we have the sound of babies crying, the sound of a car door. I could go on and on. But, and maybe this is what this is. Maybe they, because we've got one-off. So you've got the lizard man, you've got the goat man, you've got all of these things that pop up and never show up again. The infield horror is one that pops into my mind. The Flatwoods monster, all of this stuff, just one-offs. What if it's just, okay, I've got to adapt some kind of form to scare the crap out of everybody and get them to leave me alone. So here I am,
It very well could be.
That's possible. We've been kind of going down the quantum physics rabbit hole. Because according to quantum physics, in order for it to work, there has to be multiple dimensions to draw matter from and energy to make the current model of quantum physics work.
Right.
And so that makes you wonder what's there that we can't see.
I agree with that.
Quantum shifted from us just even a little bit, even a second or two. We're not going to see it, but we might hear it. Or we might hear it, or we might see it and not hear it, or whichever way it goes. There's something that's not quite there. And so I often wonder if that's not what we see a lot of times and confuse with ghosts.
I think that's highly possible. But whenever we start talking about other dimensions, I don't have a problem with that. But I also want to throw in there our reality and what is around us. We're not aware of all of it. The only things that we're aware of is that what our five senses will allow us to know. Yep. So reality that is actually here is completely different than what we see, touch, taste, hear. It's just what our body allows us to. It's what we can handle with our small little minds as far as being able to understand.
And then you get into like dogs who have a much wider ability to see, hear, and smell. And when they react to something that we can't see, maybe they can see it just fine. That's why they're reacting to it.
Exactly. I agree. 110%.
So,
matter of fact, I think that's why we have dogs in the first place.
That wouldn't surprise me.
I think that's what our ancestors did. I think they brought them in because they realized these things, cats too, can see these things that we can't see, and they help to protect us.
See entirely different wavelengths. So,
yep.
And that's why you see stuff out of the corner of your eyes, because your eyes are built different. And so anything that you need to see in low light, it's best to look at from the side.
Exactly. Yeah, they teach you that in the military. Whenever you're trying to see things at night, you never look directly at it. You look at it at your periphery. So, but yeah, that's enough of me denominating. I can't even talk anymore. Dominating the conversation. I want to hear from Enzo, Pam, Mike, Scott. What do you guys think about all this silly stuff?
Who wants to run with it?
Well, when you start bringing in interdimensional with it, or some other planes of existence, or whatever sign you want to hang on that definition, that does kind of answer all of it. That falls under that paranormal window, where going back as far as the Fae and all of those ancient stories from hundreds, if not thousands of years ago, all the way up to today. For something that can suddenly be there, suddenly not, which includes UFOs and stuff like that. That's not necessarily, that craft you see in the sky may not necessarily be from 100 light years away. it may have just slipped in from the dimension next door. And there certainly do appear to be places around the world that are hotspots where you have all of your main three, where you have ghosts, you have UFOs, and you have cryptids all in a general area, like Mount Shasta in California, Skinwalker Ranch, popularized recently, and actually Caney, Kansas appears to be one of those spots as well. The Bridgewater Triangle goes on and on.
Tahlequah, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Where you have these, what could possibly be like these thin spots between our dimension and somewhere else, where these things can kind of slide in and slide out. Maybe not even by their own power.
Yeah.
There's just they're just walking along having a normal day, and they're whatever their life is, and suddenly they're in the weird place, and these weird little shaved monkey guys are really hassling me, and then they wind up back in their world. Now they've got a story to tell on their own podcast.
The lions in Oklahoma.
Yes. Yeah.
So that was a well-documented case.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, and we get back into the 70s talking about the kangaroos that popped up in Texas. The phantom kangaroos, ghost kangaroos. They popped up in Arkansas, matter of fact, across the United States. But we've had different creatures that just kind of pop up, and all of a sudden they're like gone.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
We had a really odd cryptid pop up in January, and Mike was actually one of the people that we had a couple of witnesses on different parts of the county. The same day, one was in the morning and one was towards twilight, that saw this thing, and we still haven't figured out what it is. I think I've talked to you about it, Robert, the not a deer thing.
Yeah. I remember us talking about that. Yeah.
This is Mike. Mike's actually the guy that saw it. So.
Oh, well, very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Tell us a little bit.
there's one of them cases where I drive the back way home just to kind of chill before I get home, and look for stuff and see what I can see. And down the road, I seen something go flying over the road, didn't touch from side to side, and I said, did I just see what I think I saw? And it was bizarre, and I still, whenever I go by that spot, which I do quite often, I look both ways and up and down and see if I can see it again. But it would just it kind of resembled the size of a deer, but it was translucent, and it wasn't a deer. I know what deer look like.
Right.
And but yeah, it was bizarre.
Hmm.
I stopped where I thought that it went across the road, and I think whatever it was actually spooked some deer out. I looked in my rearview mirror, and then some deer come out of the woods behind me across the road. But that was. Keep hoping I'll see something like that again. I keep driving the road.
Yeah.
That kind of makes me think of the not a deer or not deer.
Yes.
Brought up too.
Yeah, I've got a lady that's going to be on as a eyewitness here in a couple of episodes, and she had a real interesting run-in with the not deer. So yeah, that's another one that seems to be on the rise, and it's just kind of weird timing that it seems to be on the rise, especially with the prion disease that deer are suffering from in our area and everything. So it makes you kind of wonder, are people mistaking these very sick deer for this, or is there just a weird coincidence that these two are happening at the same time?
The interesting thing about Mike's especially was the fact that it was translucent.
Right. No, I wasn't trying to insinuate Mike doesn't know what he's talking about.
That's the weirdest part about the whole thing, because I don't even think the not deer in where is it, in Appalachia, I think.
Yeah.
I don't even think that they're solid, right? I don't know if I've heard of any that are translucent up that way. And what's totally interesting about Mike's is when he came in and he was telling the group, we happened to have a paranormal group the next day, and he was telling us about it. And one of the ladies that came to the group was like, that's crazy, because I wanted to tell you guys what I had seen yesterday morning on my way to work. And what it was something that was exactly what Mike had described, that jumped between her car and another car. and she could, because she thought it was a deer, and she's like, wait a minute, I can see through that. I can see the headlights through it, you know.
Right.
It just really, and it was so strange for it to happen on opposite ends of the almost catacorner ends of the county from each other.
Be about 10 miles apart.
Yeah.
Seen mine where she's seen what she's seen.
And hers was just a little bit, it was still a little bit dark out. And this was the end of January of 2024.
Mhm.
So it was still just a little bit dark out, but it was still light out when Mike saw it. It was close to twilight, but it was, you know, honestly not too far off from a sunrise or full sun when
Yeah.
she saw it. So I don't know if that timing is kind of interesting too. You know,
Yeah, it is.
that's kind of a faith thing, you know, where you've got the times of day there.
Yeah, what we call twilight, or
Yeah.
you know, sometimes they used to actually refer to that as midnight because it was between the two. So, since we're all talking about connections and all of that stuff, what kind of connections are we seeing? You know, to kind of get the audience on the same page that we're all on. What kind of connections are we seeing that are stretching between these three, from the UFOs to the paranormal to the cryptids?
Oh gosh.
Well, often during cryptid sightings, strange lights will be seen.
Yep.
And
Orbs, basically.
Yes.
Is what's in all three.
Yeah.
Right. Which is funny because an orb kind of qualifies as all three.
yes,
Yeah, it is an unidentified flying object.
Yep.
It is possibly paranormal in nature, or must be paranormal in nature. One would think, if we don't know the scientific reason behind it, it must be therefore paranormal.
Mhm.
And since it has its own name, it therefore qualifies as a cryptid. So, you know, it's kind of one of those things that breaks
Yeah.
the barrier
And
of all three.
if we're going to go back to these are entities from some other dimension, if something is trying to push its way like into our 3D dimension, they're from somewhere else. Whether you want to start saying multiple dimensions, I think what science up to like 12 or 14 now,
Yeah.
or something like that.
Right.
But if something is pushing into our 3D reference that we can see and all that, it would probably start off as a sphere. You know, you're not just going to see a hand magically appear and then the rest of it flows through like some crappy green screen effect, not including this one. But it's
It's fabulous.
you know, if something comes through, I would think that it would start off just as a ball and kind of grow larger, and then as it gets further into our dimension and starts conforming to our 3D rules, where we can kind of make sense of it, I think that's what it would kind of look like. So what we're seeing is these little lights, these little globes floating around. It just may be something exactly like that, something from another dimension that hasn't quite pushed all the way through, but we can sort of see like a bit of it.
Right. Now, I don't know if anybody else has ever seen orbs in real life. I have seen them in real life in the forest, and it's really weird because it's almost like this bioluminescent thing floating through the woods. It's putting off light. It's a bright light to you, but it's not illuminating everything around it. It's just what it passes closest to seems to be slightly illuminated by it.
That's interesting.
And then they're just gone, you know, and that's
Right.
It's so strange.
and those have been reported by cryptid investigators. They've been reported by UFO investigators. They've been cataloged by ghost hunters. Just about, and then lay people have seen things floated and they don't know what to call them.
Yeah.
Right.
Who knows? But it's
Yep.
it's things like this that the different groups see, and they all attribute it to what they know.
Yeah.
So the UFO guys, oh, it's UFO, and the ghost guys, oh, it's a spirit, and the cryptid guys, I don't know what it was, but it was weird.
Mhm.
And that's the idea about the Paracon. We get these people together and start having them compare notes.
Right.
That guy's not as crazy as I thought he was, or that sort of thing. 'Cause-
Thought you was.
yeah, and it's kind of like scientists. You'll get a geologist that'll tell you one thing, and then a paleontologist come tell you another thing. and they're both giving each other the side eye because they don't think the other one's right.
Well, I think we have run into the same problem in cryptozoology, paranormal, and all of that science has run into. And that's where in science, you're working towards getting grant money towards you. So it's all about money.
Follow the money.
Yes, follow the money. So a theory, a hypothesis, or whatever is only as good as exactly. And so it's only as good as the money that
Always
backs it up.
comes down to the
That's
the
good.
cash.
Yeah. But that's why these people who are, doctors and scientists and whatever, and they're published and they've made their whole career off of whatever theory or a hypothesis that they've come up with. That's why they fight so bitterly whenever somebody tries to point out that there's holes in their theory.
Yes.
We have to make sure that we are not doing that. We need to make sure that we keep the bias set to the side. I get a lot of ideas right now. I'm on the whole thing about the other. I almost make a connection with the other with all of it. Does that mean I'm right? Yeah. Does that mean I'm right and I won't change my mind? No. There could be something down the road. There could be something I see tomorrow and make me go, well, that was dumb. Why'd I think that?
Right.
But we have so many people who are so biased and ironclad into taking whatever this is and using it to prove what they already have as an agenda, that they skip over what we're really supposed to be doing, which is collecting the information.
Really
It is, but I think it's the scary side of human nature because, I try not to get into this, but religion, politics, that's the scary side of both of those because
That's terrifying.
That's all connected. Again, we've got to it's all connected. But that's the thing we've got to try to avoid. We've got to try to keep an open mind about everything. I've got to keep an open mind about the cryptid thing. I've got to keep an open mind about ghosts.
Right.
I'm a natural skeptic, but I'm also a natural believer. I believe that there's something going on. What it is, I don't quite know, but I'm really intensely curious to find out exactly what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can show me, I'll be the first one to put your name up in lights.
Yep. I'm right there with you. I'm the skeptic who really badly wants to believe. I'll go on an investigation. I'm like, okay, well, here's this evidence, but it could be this and it could be that. So, but all I'm going to do is collect evidence, and then the next investigation, I'm collecting the same evidence. I'm trying to build protocols, make sure that we're doing everything the same way every time.
Establish a pattern if there's going to be one there. Yeah.
Exactly. Because that's the scientific way of doing it.
Collect data.
When you've got the UFO camp, the Bigfoot camp, you've got the ghost camp, and then you've got humans. Out of all those things, humans are by far the scariest creatures ever. I am way more scared of a living, breathing human being than I am of a ghost.
Oh, you and me both.
Or anything.
Oh, absolutely. There are monsters that walk the earth, and most all of them look like your neighbor.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I was going to say that I think that's probably one of the best things that, as an investigator, you should do is be a skeptic.
I agree, Scott.
I've taken bubble levels with me on investigations to see why a door is opening on its own.
Mark's really made some people sad that really wanted their house to be haunted when he found out the door was just unlevel, or one of them had a gas leak. They couldn't figure out where the odd smells were coming from, and it was a gas leak, which could have been really dangerous.
I was going to ask you about the spook light over there in what is it, northeast Oklahoma?
The Hornet spook
Do
light.
you think that's some sort of a portal for the paranormal, or?
That's tough. That's a good one. I'm not sure.
I mean, I've never really thought about it.
I really don't know.
I mean, I've been to it, and I don't know what to think about it.
Did you see it?
It could
believe
be.
I've seen it.
You probably did then. A lot of people have.
It could be plasma. Who knows?
Yeah.
Swamp
Near a
gas.
fault line in that area.
Well, yes.
It could be Mark gas. I don't know.
There's been so many people that have seen that, and there's been scientists that have tried to figure out what it is, and nobody has determined what it is yet. They may never. It's been around for the longest time. They tried to say it was cars on the interstate, or what was was there before the interstate, but
Right.
it was known by Indians in the area way before
Right.
there were cars in the area.
My mother seen it when she was in high school. She was from that area, and she took me and my brother out. I was in grade school and seen it. I've seen it 2 times since, so it's been there.
It's been there a long time then, huh?
Definitely something.
Yeah.
And see, that could be one of the things to do with what like we call places of power, where there's
Right.
just something happening there, and we don't understand it. We're just not evolved enough yet to understand what that is.
We've been in a couple of different places on investigations where it seems like you have a build up and you can feel it build up of energy, and it just hits a crescendo and then it releases. And I wonder, it may be something like that where it's going to build up to a specific point and then release. And I don't know.
Like some sort of geomagnetic capacitor charging up to let something really weird happen.
maybe. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it could be because the minerals that are in the ground right there, we don't
Oh, yeah.
know.
Well, look how common silicone is in these areas that have a lot of weird stuff. And if you look, a lot of these things are in high silicone areas. What do we use silicone for?
Mhm.
Why?
Yep.
This device right here that holds tons of videos and stuff. So what's to say there's not some natural explanation for a lot of that, like your stone tape theory, where the ground is actually recording an image in 3D.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yep.
we ought to study that and see how it happens so we can store data in 3D.
Yep.
I don't know.
That's highly possible. Highly possible. I assume you're talking about like where a type of haunting that repeats itself over and over
Exactly.
again. Residual haunting. Yeah.
Yep.
That actually makes more sense than most other stuff. That there is something that in nature just simply record. We used to always say, boy, if these trees could talk, they could sure tell a story. Well, maybe they can.
They do talk. Yeah. We know they talk among themselves for sure.
Yeah, that's
They
true.
send each other nutrients through their root systems. They let each other know when there's danger in the area. They know that for sure. We know that for sure now.
Right.
We just don't know the language.
Right.
That is true. That is true. So what other kind of things are we looking at that are connecting across? We mentioned orbs, definitely. What else are we seeing that is crossing the threshold between the three?
Something that we have happen in our area, and like Enzo had said earlier, Katie seems to have a weird little thing going on with all 3 camps, all 3 types of phenomena happening.
Mhm.
Out in the Sandhills, we have documented time slips or missing time for sure. Not time slips, but we have actually done time slips too, but missing time for sure.
Mhm.
One thing that when we first started as a group, which is phenomenal that she was doing it at the time, Jess was meticulous on notes. The second that we left the house to do an investigation, 12:06 p.m. left the house and headed out. 12:15 p.m. We crossed into this area. And she would just mark everything. 12:20 p.m. a jogger passed us on the road. She would just mark everything down. And looking back on our notes, there's things that occurred at the time that we didn't realize meant anything. Going years back now, we see it. But also, it was an interesting way to find out that there was points in some of this that we actually missed time. And it was really interesting. One of them, she and I had gone out to start mapping ley lines out in the Sandhills. And we were out there for a while, and we had passed a jogger on the way to our location. And he was just getting ready to get off the dirt road and onto the pavement. when we passed him. When we sat at a place that we go to a lot, and we ran a dowsing rod session. And then we left there and we went to another place that's out by the river, and we sat there for a little bit. And then we decided we were getting hungry. We were going to run back in town and have lunch and kind of go over our notes. So we do. And when we're coming off the dirt road back onto the pavement, we thought it was really odd to see the jogger. He was still that he was a little bit further down the road, but not much. And he was still headed in the same direction, so it struck us as odd at the time that he wasn't headed back, but not really odd, because we're thinking maybe, he's just doing a circuit or something and he's just going the same direction, didn't really pay it much mind. And we get to the restaurant and we're looking through our notes and we get to realizing we're missing, I can't remember how much it was. It was like 45 minutes of time.
Yeah, I believe you said 45 minutes.
Yeah, it was very close to 45 minutes where we couldn't, because when we got to the restaurant, we were shocked to see what time it was, because, we thought it was a lot longer that we were gone than what we truly were. And then we realized, wait a minute, this isn't adding up. And that was our first realization that stuff like this can happen and you don't really catch on to it. It may seem odd at the time, but unless you have written proof of it to go back and look at and be like, wait a minute. And it's happened to us a few more times since then.
Yeah.
And we know it through the meticulous documentation of the times.
Yep, that may have a lot to do with the power in the area where you're at.
It could be.
That just makes me reaffirms my belief about the Fae and all the stuff I was talking about.
Absolutely. The
Oh,
Fae,
yeah,
that's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Far
Yeah.
and beyond one of my favorites.
Yeah, I think I can link everything back to that. I could probably link bacon back to them if you like.
Right? I agree.
Bacon should always be included in any calculation. I
It
think.
is.
Should be. Carry the bacon and add the sausage.
Exactly. You can
it's-
subtract the sausage, but you must keep the bacon.
Always have bacon.
That's
But
funny.
most of these areas that we were talking about earlier, they do have some commonalities, it seems, which that area that Pam was talking about certainly applies. A lot of quartz in the rocks and the minerals rocks, that make up that area, which was basically, exposed granite, stuff like that. And water seems to be a big factor. Pam, didn't you guys see a big drop in activity when you guys were in a drought the last couple of years?
We didn't notice it at first, but when someone asked us, hey, did you see a drop in activity? We were like, you know what? We have seen a significant drop, haven't we? Yeah. We were Katie was in a very, very deep drought for 18 months. And at one point, I don't remember which month of the year it was this year, though. It was like maybe February-ish. The newspaper, the big headline was 47 days of water left. And we were going to be completely out. And so we did. Yeah, we sure did see a drop. And now that we're starting to get water again, I'm curious to see if we're going to have a bigger increase in reports again.
Well, as I recall, because you guys had a lot of real heavy spring storm activity this year, the track just happened to go through there, which brought you guys back from the brink of drying up and blowing away.
Yeah.
As I recall, that's about the time that Mike had his not a deer, ghost deer, whatever we're going to call it, sighting.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And that would go along with the other person that saw it too.
I'm curious, is there naturally a lot of quartz in that area?
There is sandstone. The sandhills is made up of
sandstone.
Yeah.
Well, hypothetically, the flow of underground water around that quartz should create an electrical field.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
We have tons of springs in the area too.
Yeah, natural springs.
Mm-hmm.
And something else I want to investigate, when we were studying sound and vibrations for a podcast recently, it seems a lot of these really notoriously haunted or notoriously high in activity areas all vibrate at a frequency that Hollywood has been using in the background of films to make you feel frightened. And I would like to try to find out what sort of equipment I would need to measure some of these areas we go to, wondering if that background vibration is predominant in these areas and maybe where some of these reports are originating from, or maybe it's caused by whatever is causing the reports.
That'd be interesting to find out.
What? How many hertz are we looking at?
I don't have my notes in front of me from that episode.
I can't remember either.
It's
I am
fairly low. I
just-
think it's like 500 and something on it.
I was super curious if it had any relevance to, you know, like at a Skinwalker Ranch where they were talking about the hertz level.
1.6 gigahertz.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's a low level, and it's you can't hear it.
Right.
So it's subaudible, but it's interesting when we got to studying cymatics and stuff. Some of the things that cymatics is able to do that science has said yes, they do some of these things. How much that might be related to all three fields?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I think all three fields are interrelated anyway. I don't.
Yeah,
I
it's all
think-
mixed up. Somebody put it
Yeah.
all in a bowl and stirred it up.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
So
I'm actually kind of glad that's been a more widely accepted theory amongst all three of the groups, which actually kind of brings all of us together. I feel a little closer versus because it was only like maybe a dozen years ago. It's like, gross. You're a UFO weirdo. I'm a ghost person. I know what I'm talking about. Shut up, you Bigfoot people. You stink out in the woods. You have the weird lines drawn between their little.
Oh yeah.
Everybody kind of hated each other, but a lot of people have been starting to put a lot of things together through communication, through actually the internet, people sharing all of their experiences and their findings out there with everybody else. The connections are being made, and so some of those barriers are starting to drop down a little bit. So
oh yeah, I mean, when I was with cryptozoology.com and I was one of the field investigators and writers for them, that's back when we all had our lines drawn in the sand, and you'd have somebody mention something paranormal to do with Bigfoot, and you're automatically, well, I don't know what kind of crack you're smoking, but that's not
Right?
Bigfoot. We don't do that. But yeah, I mean, I was one of those. I was absolutely a flesh and blood zealot as far as that went, and that's kind of a dangerous place to be. But as
when
you get
start
more
throwing out evidence because
Yeah.
it doesn't agree with your outlook.
Yep, that's because we all, we wanted to prove this flesh and blood thing. We were all about, we were all a bunch of wannabe zoologists, is what we were.
Yeah.
We armchair quarterbacks is what we were.
It's human nature to do that, and it is a constant battle to try to push yourself out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
I find myself getting locked into one thing sometimes, and sometimes I've just got to push myself out and say, no, we need to look at this. We need to consider this. So if you tell me something, I'm not going to throw it out with the bathwater.
Mhm.
I'm going to look at it and try to look at it objectively.
Yeah.
It's nice really to see the different camps come together because like you said, the egos used to be so highly involved, and we've managed to kind of work through that, it seems like, to some extent anyway, at least on a local level, to be able to come together, and I think it's made a huge difference in our investigations and our research, just if no one else's.
Yeah.
It's made a huge difference.
Yeah, I think we're growing up. I think we're getting better, and we're starting to weed out some of the, the ones who are so rigid in whatever, camp they're in. We're just kind of done with that,
Yeah, I mean, and you see
either
it.
we're all going to get along or hit the road.
You see it
Go
in
ahead,
everything
Mark.
in the world, whether it be in paranormal, whether it be politics, whether it be what kind of movies you like. Everybody wants things to be their way, and it's good to try to get together and say, "Look, we need to talk about this. I'm willing to listen," and get it out there. And you'll find, oh, wait, we see that, but we call it this.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, I think the biggest hit that I take anymore is, especially in the groups, not Monstrous. We all do really good in Monstrous, but some of the other groups, I take a hit for trying to convince people that evidence is important. if we're going to talk about something, and we're going to talk about ghosts, we're going to talk about Dogman, we're going to talk about Bigfoot, we're going to talk about UFOs, we need to compile as much evidence as we can. Evidence is important no matter what. Stories are fantastic. I love the stories. I listen to Sasquatch Chronicles, I listen to the Confessionals, I listen to everything out there. Dogman Encounters, I love that one. However, stories and eyewitness accounts are not evidence. They are circumstantial. We have to have something to go along with it to corroborate that evidence. Now, you want your evidence to be able to stand up in court, I guess is what
Right.
I'm wanting to say.
It's the empirical evidence versus the anecdotal evidence.
Yeah,
And the empirical evidence is much more important and harder to come by.
exactly. And you get a lot of people out there who are just really, really annoyed that you just won't take them by their word. And, they're the expert, they know everything. So, I've dealt with those my entire life in, dealing with cryptozoology and everything. Well, I think throughout life, you just deal with that. Somebody somewhere thinks they know it all. I've been doing this for well over 20 years and I'm still a student and I don't know it all. And the minute I think I know it all, I'm wrong.
Right. Exactly.
Yep.
And when it comes to paranormal evidence, it's so hard to get. Everybody wants it, but it's so hard to get, even when you've been doing it for a long time. What is it, like 3 seconds or something like that is the average length of a paranormal encounter.
Right.
And when something like that happens, you're like trying to figure out what it is you're seeing. And then by the time you figure out what you're seeing, you're trying to fumble with your phone or whatever to get a picture or, audio or something. And by the time you get it up, it's over with.
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating. So to actually have any type of evidence captured anywhere is amazing.
It's a minor miracle.
It is.
You have to have the equipment running when you encounter it.
Yep.
That's
Yeah.
why I like the EVPs and audio recording.
Yep. And then on top of that, you have to deal with hoaxes. So now you've got a whole nother problem in the mix. So now you have to separate the hoaxes from the real stuff, which sometimes can be pretty hard to do. Some of these hoaxes are actually pretty complex and pretty well done, especially with the introduction of AI and everything that's going on now.
Oh, yeah, that's awful.
crazy.
Mike's really good too. He'll take his voice recorder and he'll wear headphones with it so he can hear the feedback in real time or the playback in real time. So if there is something that pops up, he can hear it and, comment on it or mark it or whatever, or interact with it, if nothing else. And he's got some really good evidence that way.
And a lot of these recorders now have a button so you can mark things when you hear it and go to it when you put it on your computer.
That's cool.
Yep.
Which makes it a lot easier.
I think that Transcam or whatever the one is that I have, I think it's got, whatever the hell that thing's called. Anyway, that digital recorder that I haul around out in the woods. Yeah, that thing.
You know what's fun is I have a touch of clairaudience, which means I can hear things that not everybody else can hear sometimes, and not in a weird way. And there's been a couple of times that we've been out with recorders running, and I'll hear something, and I'll be like, "Oh my gosh, did you guys hear that?" They'll say no, and I'll repeat what I heard, and then we'll play back the recording later, and it'll be on there. Yeah. And it just recently, Mike, he had his recorder with his headphones on, and he was standing we were relatively close to each other. He was like on a staircase, and I was in the landing or in the front hall, and I heard a woman audibly sigh, and I was like, did you hear that? And Mike's like, yeah, I totally heard that on this. And I was like, yes, somebody heard it.
That was cool.
That was cool, wasn't it?
I was going to say that's one of the things that I've learned is because, see, I went out, and I'll just tell you my story. So I went out into the woods to a cave out east of Arc City. And I had a friend with me, and I just went out there just to be goofing off. And that's when I heard the whoops from what I believe was a Bigfoot. But I didn't have anything going. I didn't have a recorder. I didn't have video, nothing. but I did have a witness, and that's it. But so one of the things I've learned is, if you go out into the woods, just have a recorder going at the very least, just because. Just start it when you get out of the vehicle, carry it with you to whatever the case might be. But just, because that's evidence right there, the sounds and most of the time you're not going to get a video of anything, but the audio is a big deal.
Yeah.
So, that's one thing I've learned is, just do something like that, just something simple. Doesn't have to be,
Yeah, I've actually, over the years, my old job was around a lot of people all the time. I had, I don't know, dozens of people ask me if you used to buy one piece of equipment to go ghost hunting, what it would be. And I said, audio recorder. Because if you get something there that is hard evidence that you've got.
Yep.
Yeah, even a cheap one is better than your ears.
Oh, yeah.
Mike, your audio is a little low, but what Mike's saying is being asked over the years by a whole bunch of different people, because he did work in the public for a lot of years, like 35 years or something.
45.
45, sorry. And they would ask him, of all the equipment, what would be the one piece of equipment you would suggest? And he would always say a voice recorder.
That's true. That's absolutely right.
Absolutely.
Yep. And I'm sure you guys have noticed it too, that it seems like when you go out into the field with the purpose of trying to collect evidence, that's when you have the hardest time finding evidence. And whenever you're just out there goofing around, being your regular old self, that's when everything just cuts loose and lets you have it all.
It's like, and it makes me wonder, us as humans, we're basically like blind toddlers, just kind of walking around the world. When you think about some of these other creatures that could possibly be out there, so what I wonder, are we out there like a beacon of light, basically, oh, we're out here looking for you. So they're like, yeah, okay, we're going to stay away from the crazies over here but when we're not out there looking, and it's almost like they can tell that we're not physically actively looking. And then that's when they decide to pop up, and.
Yeah, maybe it's simply that they are able to tell what our intent is while we're out there.
And also, humanity, since the dawn of time, since humans came out on this earth, we have not ever been known as the most peaceful of species. I would stay far away from me as well.
Oh, yeah. My number one rule, I can go out and I can look for monsters. I can go look for Bigfoot. I can look for Dogman. I can look for anything out there it really doesn't scare me. You know what'll run me out of the woods? A human.
Yeah, why are they out there?
Yeah.
Why are they out there?
I personally don't like them.
Yeah. What are you burying out here that I don't want to have any part of?
Yeah,
Yes,
especially if they're somewhere where humans normally aren't. Why are they there?
Exactly.
Yeah, if you go looking for paranormal, you may not find it. But if you go looking for trouble, you certainly will.
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely. That is true.
I'm really good at that. I've found more trouble than I need. Okay.
Humans are kind of crummy.
Yeah, I don't like them at all. They smell funny too. All right. So what else is going on with everybody? Let's do this. Mike told us about an encounter that he had. Has anybody else had any encounters? Scott, you kind of mentioned something. Anybody else had any encounters that they want to bring up?
I've had 2 UFOs in my life I've seen. I've never, to my knowledge, never had any cryptid or ghost. Well, I had like a super minor ghost thing, but footsteps. But when I was like 10 years old, I grew up in eastern Kentucky, Ashland, Kentucky, right where Ohio, Kentucky, and West Virginia meet.
State.
Yeah. You
That's
grew up
already
seeing
scary.
weird stuff.
That's it. I got kinfolk all over West Virginia, and West Virginia is super weird. And then there's my kinfolk, but that's a whole other level and a whole other story. But there was it was 1976, no 7, because it was there was a steel plant where my house was. We were on top of this hill. There was a little valley. Then there was like a couple shopping centers and the steel mill in the town. Back when American towns used to have their own steel mill in them.
Yeah.
And it had this one huge, almost like aircraft hangar sized building in it that trains full of coal coming out of West Virginia would come in to feed the furnace and to make the steel itself there at the plant. But, this thing was just dwarfed these giant train cars coming in to offload their coal, and they'd go drive right on through. And during 1976, the bicentennial, they had a big lit up American flag on the top, and it was just super cool to see. When I was a 9-10-year-old kid, because it wasn't that special nowadays, but it was cool back then. I just by habit looked over the hill when I was on that side of the house to look at the flag. Well, of course, 1977 rolls around and they just unplug it. And I just out of that habit of looking over there, I saw this like brilliant white, kind of like oval of light, like welder bright white. It was hard to like look directly at it. And it was slowly moving from one end of that building to the other, very, very slowly. And it was about the size of one of those big coal train cars. So that's pretty sizable. Yeah. And at first, even as a little kid, I'm like, okay, is like the building on fire? Is it like a helicopter? I would hear it if it was. What's going on? But I didn't see like fire trucks or, a lot of screaming and all that stuff that you would expect to see from where I was. And it was like, there was just no big deal. I was like, wait a minute. And as I'm looking at it slowly moving, I was like, have I seen a UFO? I've heard of these things. And my little sister was in the garage next to me working on her bike. And something in my head said, don't look away, because if you look back, it's not going to be there. So I was like deadlocked on this object, whatever it was, this glowing light. And I'm trying to get my sister, hey, come over here. Come over here. Tell me what you see. I think it's a UFO. Little sister's doing what little sisters do. You're stupid. You're trying to trick me. You're being dumb. I was like, no, you really need to come over here and see this. And it's right there. And, nah. And I turned, like, would you please just come over here and look at? Gone. The second I looked away and looked back, gone. So I go to school the next day. I was in elementary school. And I thought this was a really public place, like right at about sunset. So there had to have been other people that saw this thing. So I started asking around. And again, kids being kids, I got turned into, you're the UFO kid now. Fortunately, it didn't carry on through the rest of my school career, like some other haunting things like that can happen. But I learned right away quick, okay, if you see something weird, shut up. No one's going to believe you. No one's going to take you seriously. And they're going to not take you serious for other things because they think you're a wackadoo.
Yep.
And kind of sat on it. But that's what started me down my curiosity about all of this kind of thing from that point on at 10 years old. But didn't have anything else until about like 1999 when I was at a friend's backyard just about 8 miles that way in downtown Wichita, Kansas. And I'm an astronomy nerd. So anytime I go outside at night, first thing I do is look up. I'm looking up at the stars, seeing what I can see, seeing what's up there. And I just got the sense that there's something was moving, like directly overhead and like moving away towards the horizon. But it was solid black, no lights, no sound. Just, I honestly, for most of like the 6 or 7 seconds that I was looking at this thing, most of it was spent, is it just my eyes playing tricks on me? Am I really seeing something moving? Because it was like a dark gray on a black background moving. And I think the only reason I was able to see it was the lights from the city itself were kind of underlighting whatever it was. I wasn't even sure on shape, but being an astronomy nerd, I started looking forward of the way it was moving. It's like, okay, there's stars there. It was blocking out stars. So it was something was there. It was something solid. I kind of got the idea it might have been a triangle shape, but if it was like instead of like what we would think of, would be like, aerodynamic, where you would have, the point of the triangle moving forward. What I saw, it was like the flat side was moving forward as it flew overhead. No real concept of how big it was or how high it was or anything like that. It would have had to been relatively low if the lights from the city were lighting up the bottom sides, but just slowly drifted over. And by that time, I'd been in the Air Force for 12 years or more at that point. So I'd seen a lot of planes and a lot of things, and I never saw anything like that before. I can't explain it.
That is cool. That is very cool.
Yes.
What about you, Pam? Have you run into anything, seen anything, heard anything?
I have actually. Back before I started actively looking for things, senior in high school. So I'm aging myself, 1987. I worked at Copco on the overnight shift. So and this was during the summertime. And we would get our lunch break at midnight. And so we would go out in the sandhills to see what our friends were up to because there was always something going on out there. Very small town, nothing to do. So that's usually where we spent our time, was out that way. And my friend Shelly, she was driving. She had a little bitty Toyota Celica, and she was driving, and I was in the passenger seat. And then our friends Tisha and good grief, I forgot her name. Tisha and Amy were in the back seat, and we're headed out of town on Bronco Road, and you go out there and you go over a big bridge. Well, when you hit the bridge, you go around just a little bit of a curve before it straightens back out. And right when we were coming around that curve, her headlights, Shelly's headlights, hit this thing that's standing in the middle of the road, and it's on the lines of the road, and it was huge. She slams on the brakes. We start screaming, because we're like, what is this thing? Well, it stops, and it looks at us, and it crouches down, and then it jumps. And it jumped over the guardrails and off down towards where the river was. And so, she immediately whipped it around, and we headed back to town, and we were all, freaking out and everything. And so we sat down, and I drew out a picture, and I wasn't a very good artist at the time, so it's a really rudimentary picture. But what we saw was a man that had really long hair all over it. And we assume now it was probably a grayish color, because she had really rotten headlights. So they weren't very bright. And we called it the peach monster because the color that it looked like, it kind of gave it a peachy glow with her headlights. And, of course, everybody thought we were completely nuts at the time, especially when they saw my drawing, because I gave it very human eyes. And that was the big, if it was Bigfoot, it wouldn't look like that. That looks like a man, and blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't until just a couple of years ago, I was actually looking on Dave Pilates' website, the missing 411 guy.
Right.
And he actually worked with, Mark, do you remember the name of that tribe? The Hoopa tribe.
Yep.
Up in the Pacific Northwest. And they are very friendly with Bigfoots up that way. And he had engaged a forensic artist out of Oklahoma City, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
to go up there with
FBI artist.
Yes, and that would go up there with him and would basically draw photographs from what people were telling him. And there was a couple of pictures on his website, and I was shocked when I saw them because they had very human-looking eyes, and it looked very much like what I saw. And I was really thrilled to actually see, because a lot of the pictures that you see, they look more ape-like in the face and stuff, but not what I saw. What I saw had very, very human-looking eyes. And so it was really cool to see that. And that was, 87. And then we found out maybe 5 years ago, Jess had put a call out for anyone in the area to send us their cryptid stories, and that we would keep them anonymous.
Mm-hmm.
And she got one particular story in from a gentleman that he's a few years younger than me, and him and his sister had been out near the area that we had seen this thing. And he had witnessed something very similar. They were parked. He got out of the car to use the bathroom. He heard something rustling. He reached inside, turned the lights on, and this thing was in the road, and it jumped off the edge of the road and scared them. Well, he didn't know my story. I didn't really know him because he was younger. And so many years later, so Jess is like, she's making the connection without telling him. And so she got him pinned down to, it was the summer of 87-ish. So it looks like he saw it within about 2 months of when we saw that same creature, and it was within a quarter of a mile of where we saw it.
That is wild.
Coincidentally, where she showed us she saw that is within a mile of the time slip area,
Yeah.
the lost time, and the Catman scratch.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all right there together.
All right there together. We tried to get Enzo to buy a house there, but
We did.
Yeah.
He said no.
So you've got an area of high strangeness just sitting right there.
Absolutely. That nobody
Yeah,
really
That's
knows
the
about.
thing.
And
Well,
Mike, we
nobody
actually,
wants to
all of
build a
us
house
went
out there.
out. I don't know, it was a couple years ago now. We went out to that area so we could determine how far down this thing had to jump. And what would you say, Mike? About 30 feet down, probably?
Yeah, pretty close to that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this
it's
thing
pretty
had to have
steep.
jumped over that guardrail and over those, you know how they take in those
Rip
huge
rap.
boulders to build up for around the rivers and stuff so it won't flood
Right.
out.
Size of your head.
Yeah, it jumped clear over those and went down
Yeah.
about 30 feet.
Yeah.
And that's only about 3, maybe 4 miles from where I seen my translucent deer.
Yeah,
Yep,
It's
that's
very
on
close
around
to
the bend and down the road.
sure
Mhm.
is.
Yep. So that's interesting. That's all taking place pretty much in one area right out
Mhm.
there.
Very close. There's been
Yeah.
a little people sighting out in that area as well.
It's a very squatchy area too.
Yeah.
It's just highly dense woods. There's water, food. There's fields that can raise. Everything is right there that a large creature would need.
We've
Mhm.
actually taken Enzo and Scott out there too, so they both got to see that area as well.
Yeah.
It was interesting that you brought that up about David Velitis. I think I've got all of his books, and I watch his channel almost religiously. So, yeah, I'd known about the Hooper Project and the artists that they had brought in and everything. So that's
Yeah.
really cool. And it's interesting that you mentioned the human-looking part of it because for a long time there was a real push for this thing to be the next discovered ape out there, the big gorilla of North America and everything. And we're starting to see more and more of a lean in that towards this being something much more human than much more ape.
Right.
So, kind of like the I don't know what you'd want to call it, our lost cousins or whatever, the smart
Yeah,
ones,
the
the ones
missing
that stay
link.
away from us. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Have I showed you that picture before, Robert?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, I'm going to try to show it really low techy
Oh.
here.
Okay.
Oh.
The top one's the one that I drew, and the bottom
Oh.
one's off of Dave Pilates' page.
Yeah. Look very, very similar. Yep.
Oh,
There
there
it
you go.
is.
Perfect.
I'll try to get a screen capture of that and put it on the
I can send it to you
YouTube.
too.
Yes, please do. Please do.
Yeah, I can send that to you.
Speaking of Pilates, his idea for these hot spots, he's got that map of the U.S. with all the little
Right.
arrows and stuff in there. He does have a baseline for things that all those places have in common, which we've actually already discussed, where he has exposed granite and large water sources as being like one of the main features for some of these areas where these people go missing at, which is how we describe some of these paranormal hotspots. So,
Right. Boulder Fields, I think, are one of them. There's a lot of odd stuff. Like I've noticed Boulder Fields play a big part in a lot of this. So yeah. I've run into that too. And that kind of links over into what do they call that? The containment theory that has to do with
State
the
parks.
national parks and everything, that actually the national parks were made to contain these things, whatever they may be within an area, kind of like you would like a Native American reservation area. So I don't know. Maybe there is something to that. I don't know yet.
It's
scary. It's interesting to think about, though.
It's a good conspiracy theory, if nothing else.
For sure.
Well, you know what the difference between a conspiracy theory and a news story is, don't you?
What's that?
3 weeks.
That's about right.
The last 2 years, yeah.
That's about right. Well, hey guys, can you think of anything else that we need to tell the listeners before we wrap this up?
Other than if you get a chance and you're in the area, come check out the Paracon. It's at Caney, Kansas, September 28th of this year. And if you want to go to our website, it is Bordertown. It's SEK Bordertown Paranormal on Facebook, or you can go to bordertownparanormal.com and find out more information on it.
Okay, that sounds great. And everybody needs to be listening to and watching AMOK on
Yes.
YouTube. You need to be watching Red Dirt Cryptids. You
Yep.
need to be watching Bordertown Strange, and
Yep.
you definitely need to be watching Monstrous. So, and we also have a Facebook group. So you need to join us because all of these people are going to be in there. We're all going to have fun. We're all going to sit and talk. And those of you that aren't members, you're going to join.
We
So
got
that
one
we
other
can include you in
podcast
there and
too.
we can have fun with you.
We've got On the Fringe.
Yeah,
and What
on
If
the Fringe
Tomorrow-
podcast.
Yep.
Pretty
We've got
Bordertown
everybody. We've
Strange.
got all kinds of podcasts out there, everything going on. So, yeah, if you're not listening and you're not watching, you're missing out. So, you need to join us. Okay. So, I'd like to thank everybody who joined me tonight for this roundtable. We're going to do it again in the future, definitely. And I'd like to thank everybody who listened in, and we'll be back next week. Thanks, everybody, for showing up.
Yeah.
Thank you. Have a good
Nice.
night.
Y'all have a great one.
You too.
In the shadows they hide, eyes that pierce through the night. Whispers turn into cries, fear grips tight with no fight. Claws scrape the midnight air, breathing so close, beware. Around you hear the dread sound, nightmares walk on this ground. Monsters lurking everywhere, feel the chill in my air. Don't look back, they're waiting there, holding on to your despair. Monsters lurking everywhere, feel the chill in the night air.